in 2 seconds. Okay, I think we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, my guest is Petar Cuk. He's a head of sales at a company called Mediatoolkit. Mediatoolkit is launched in 2014 by The Guardian as an independent digital agency with 8 years experience in creating award-winning digital products. And due to the rapid growth, they began to operating as a separate company in 2016. They currently have 40,000 users in 105 countries. Hello, Petar. So tell us something about yourself before we go into your product and how you build a sales team.
Okay. Well, first, Uzmah, thanks for having me. Well, my name is Petar Cuk. As you mentioned, I work in Mediatoolkit on the position of head of sales. Something about myself, I was born in a small Croatian town called Slavonski Brod. I studied modern and contemporary history and had a couple of jobs as a teacher, some sales jobs, and one of my latest job that I'm doing over several years is working in Mediatoolkit. So the story is quite interesting from perspective, how did somebody who likes history, likes to teach, became a salesperson? Well, basically, after I graduated in college, there was not too much job available. I did some work in some schools, but it was temporary jobs. You know, somebody was on parental leave or on sick leave, and then they had to find some replacement. And I quite enjoyed that line of work, but always in my mind, it was interesting. I liked teaching, but it was like kind of too slow for me. You know, I wanted to have something with a little bit more adrenaline. And that's how I started working in some private companies. And then I went within the media monitoring industry, and then I noticed an ad on this really interesting young company called The Guardian, which was what you said earlier, was full service digital agency. And I noticed that they have a new product that was basically a social listening tool. And I kind of thought, well, this is the future, right? Everything is going more digital. You could track various business intelligence information on online media, on social media, and I kind of was attracted to this idea. So The Guardian had a job ad stating that they wanted to found let's say customer acquisition specialist, which was basically a salesperson. And so I applied. There was like rigorous selection, and I got a job. Then when I came to the company, basically it was job at Mediatoolkit, which was then a project department within the agency, because the founders, Tomislav and Daniel, always wanted to create products besides the agency work. And then I found out, I met my boss, who's still my current boss, Ivor, who worked as a product manager. They had a small team, couple of developers, and a colleague that worked in, let's say, marketing on an intern level, and some full-time employees. And then I was basically employed as a first salesperson. So this was when they had the product, they had the prototype, it worked. They had no customers except one, which was a random customer. It was one, let's say, not so famous Croatian singer who wanted to track what's being said about him. But besides that, there was not real B2B customers at the moment. So my first job was, of course, to get familiar with the tool. Then I got an assignment to do some competitive research globally. Who are competitors? What do they have? What we don't have? So that was the first line. And then basically I started calling, since we had some PR moments. You know, we broadcasted, The Guardian broadcasted that they have a new product. So there was new users online. And so I started calling them out, and basically it was a tough couple of first months because we didn't have any sales strategy. We didn't know who to sell it, right? We didn't have anything, so it was trials and errors. So first 3 months I called everybody, and whoever registered on Mediatoolkit, was it a college student or somebody from a PR marketing, or let's say a blogger just looking out what's happening with this tool. I listened to their problems. I tried to understand what they're doing, and if I saw something that we could do, I would then ask them about how can Mediatoolkit help them, and then I would set up their account and, well, basically try to sell them, right? But without any strategy and without any knowledge how to sell software as a service. So it's not something to be very proud about, but first 3 months, I got 0 customers. And then on the third month and second day, there was this blogger about digital marketing. She was a blogger, she was from Serbia, and she bought the first Mediatoolkit account from me. So what's the comedy here? We didn't have any payment process. So I got to my boss and said, okay, we got this person, he wants to buy Mediatoolkit account. And we didn't have 2 things. Now, what's the price, and how? And if the price is okay, how she would buy it? Would she use credit card, PayPal? Which we send an offer? What we're gonna do? And it's a private person. It's not even a company. So basically, then we concluded that we could sell it to 15 euros per month, and that we can use PayPal. And I managed to sell it. And if you know PayPal, you probably know that they have some costs. So it's not actually that you get 15 euros, you get 12 euros. And I sold that, and I was not too proud of it because basically it's what is it? It's like, let's say, a bottle of wine at a store. So it's not something. And I know how much my paycheck is and how costs are big within that team. So I was not proud. Okay, it's something, right? It may be a good thing, but during that time, the Gordian had a big project, a big website they sold to this big company, and it was huge. And the entire agency was celebrating that big job. And meanwhile, I'm selling something at 15 euros per month. And the CEO was really amazing because he went to entire company with this laptop, and he showed the PayPal invoice stating that we managed to sell Mediatoolkit during a live sales call online, and that it's something to be very proud of. And I was like a little bit ashamed. It's only 15 euros. And he told me, no, this is something. We had a proof that we could talk to somebody who we never met, and we can sell them something over the phone. And also a big plus, that person was in another country. So this was something, when you want to scale abroad, you don't want just to sell to Croatian customers. So this was something that was a positive thing in retrospective. So then I started to learn more about sales. I started to read a lot of books, and then basically I did a combination of inbound and outbound sales. So I listed 500 companies. I noticed that PR persons have much more value from the tool than the average person. And so I started to read about PR, about marketing. I wanted to know my customer. And basically, as a first rep, I started to just go via mail, via phone, to do every PR person in Croatia. And I went to the first conference with my colleague. We didn't know anybody within the PR scene. Nobody knew us. They know something about the Gordian, which was a marketing full-service agency. And then I met them all. I met everybody. I know everybody who works in PR. So I started to attract more clients. I had a lot of success, and basically selling to big Croatian companies via phone, via meetings, via email. And then my boss and the CEO noticed that we can scale this, that we can sell it. Then we employed a couple of reps. I was not their boss. Some of them were successful, some were not. And then we noticed that we need to build some process around it. And this is how the story began.
So how did you went from 15 or 12 bucks per product per month, I'm assuming, to the current pricing? So how did you price the product? Because now you're not making the products for startups anymore and for one-man bands and for influencers. I guess your target market is somewhere else. So how did you figure out the pricing later on?
Okay, well, first, it all came into conjunction together, right? The product development, when we started with sales and with other processes, we basically enhanced the tool with the customer feedback. What do they know, right? We had some proof of concept that worked, some analytics, maybe some news feed, but what kind of data do they need? What metrics? And then we basically started, okay, it makes sense. It's much more valuable than 15 euros per month. So we played with the pricing strategy. Will we charged by the number of topics that a company is tracking or by the number of mentions? So we changed the pricing strategy in this few years several times. But the biggest thing is when we learned how to sell value and not the feature. So basically, when we talk to a PR or marketing person, what do they want to get from the tool like this, and if it's valuable to them, if it's a big problem that we are solving, then of course we can then offer bigger prices. And of course there is also the part of the pricing is also your investment costs in the servers, in the infrastructure, people. So how do we sell it? Well, we basically started to dig deeper into customers' problems, and we would get them aware of their problems and how Mediatoolkit can save them time, save them costs, give them valuable insights into the market so they could be more competitive. And then when you're talking about real problems, you're not talking anything about 15 euros. You're actually driving the sales revenue for other company high, or you're helping them help them attract more customers because they'll have much more efficient marketing that way. So that was the big shift. The big thing that helped us here is the book by Neil Rackham called Spin Selling, which is actually a framework for sales where you ask a lot of questions to potential customers, like situational questions, how they are doing their job, problem questions, what challenges do they have on a day-to-day basis, implication questions, when you find some problem, what are the consequences of these problems, and then you build value with your tool from a sales perspective. From a product perspective, you make the tool much more faster, reliable, give them features that the clients or potential clients needs, and that's how you build value. Did I manage to answer your question?
You touched a bit. Oh, okay. I thought for a second that I lost you. You touched a bit listening to your customers. I wanted to ask you this at the end, but let's jump into the customer success now. So what was the process of approaching the customers and understanding how to make them successful? What was the process? So how many calls did you do per week or per month to understand their needs?
Well, basically, first when we started, we didn't have customer success. So everything was, we had the sales team, which basically did everything from sales development role, prospecting, picking up targets who we're gonna call and get a meeting from, then doing the meeting by ourselves, and then when we landed them as a client, we basically were account managers. And of course, in the beginning, it makes sense, right? You have one person that has entire customer journey covered. Somebody who has the customers, customers put faith in you when they signed the first contract, and since you were their salesperson, they probably are satisfied when you're working after the sales with them. But it was not scalable, right? It was not something that you could done maybe with the first 20 customers, but then some aspect of customer journey must suffer, right? Either it's the hunting part where you're attracting new customers, or the old customers are basically suffering because you have neglected them because you're trying to attract new customers. So how did we? So first, then we employed a colleague that was doing the customer success part. So when after the sales rep, after me, so after I landed a client, then we would do. I would transfer that client to that colleague, Ivana, and she would then do the customer success. She would onboard them, ask them the satisfaction, how they are satisfied with the tool, what's their what they want to achieve generally with the tool. And then basically I would come in at the end of the renewal stage as account manager and then subscribe into another service. But that was also not scalable. So now we have two departments doing revenue work in Mediatoolkit. One is, of course, the customer success, and the other one is a sales department. In customer success, we basically, what we have a couple of roles. Somebody who's customer success manager who is responsible for onboarding and satisfaction. Then we have within the customer success account managers who are looking for new potentials of collaboration to expand the accounts. And then we have reactive part of the customer success management team, which is customer support, which basically when there is a bug, there is some malfunction in the tool, they are in touch with the developers and in the client, and they're getting that part of technical support. But customer success managers, they're more focused on, okay, let me help you out. Let's use the tool. Let's get your feedback. What you like, what you dislike about the tool, and then we get ideas for the new features, and then it goes to the product development. Well, basically, when we are measuring also internally which feature is much more popular than the other one, which new idea could we put on our roadmap, and so on.
It's a revenue driver, basically.
It's a revenue driver, and it's all about the customer. So basically, we had some ideas in the past what the customers would find attractive, but it's never like that, right? It's always, you always got to listen to the customer because they have the pain points. We have some idea of what would be a pain point, but actually they give us the best ideas, best ideas how to enhance the tool.
Let's go. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, please, I interrupted you.
Let's go back to the first. You said that you start calling, emailing, and meeting the customers in person. Let's call it before COVID time. So I don't think we can exclude the meeting in person in the last year or so. And I also remember that when we met on the first call, you mentioned you started in Studio Moderno, so it was a lot of cold calling back then. But maybe focusing on reaching out via email. What was your takeoff for the first 3 months? Just finding email, so you were doing all the work, lead generation, demo calls, closing the accounts. So what was your process? And then what was your checklist when you started building the sales team? So you said, okay, this is what I learned, how to acquire leads. And this is how I did the demo calls, and this is how I closed the customer. So what you learned here, and how did you then set up the environment for the sales team?
Okay, so first thing, so when I basically was aware of when I started to be quite successful as a sales rep within the outbound approach, so I noticed that the sales process generally in B2B sales is to get a 3 simple yes. First yes is, okay, I'm speaking with the right person at a particular company. Mm-hmm. The second yes is, okay, that person wants to test our solution and see if it can solve their problems or their needs. And third yes is, they will be your client. They will sign the contract. So that's the 3 main yes. And in between, when you're doing outbound, when you're doing cold calling and cold emailing, there is lots of no, maybe, perhaps. And you want to build a process around those 3 yes, and you want to have stages for each yes, and how to learn a new salesperson how to get to the first yes, and what's the roadmap to the second yes. So the process was, I will speak from my perspective, and then how we scaled within the team together. We started first outbound, Croatia, ex-Yugoslavia, and we did it before COVID, mostly via phone and mostly via email, or let's say Zoom, Hangouts. So the COVID part was, we were quite adaptable because we were always thinking ahead. We will sell it internationally. We want to learn to sell it. Like of course, we had live meetings, but we always preferred, it's much cheaper to have an online meeting, much more effective. And you could have, let's say, if you go to a live meeting, you would probably, you could have 3 to 4 meetings tops. But if you are doing online meetings, you could have 6 to 7, maybe 8 meetings if you're doing your time management right. And so on a monthly basis, that's a lot of more meetings, that's a lot more prospects that you're acquiring. So the first step, if I'm calling or mailing a company, I want to find the right persona. So my best email that works in Croatia, but also in some countries, is very short email. Hi, maybe Uzma, you're working as head of finance, but you're not my target. Hi, Uzma, Petar from Mediatoolkit. Can you please connect me to a person who's in charge of public relations in your company? Best ever. Yeah. And that really helped me a lot via LinkedIn and so on. And then the person would reply, "Oh, talk to my colleague John." Okay, and then I would address John. So the first step is we called first call. We are saying to persona, we are pitching a meeting with us.
Sorry to interrupt you, but was this a trick to get the introduction from the internal person? So you probably knew that you have to speak with a salesperson, but you intentionally went for the finance just to get the intro?
I didn't know, I didn't know who most of the time who I'm speaking, because I would notice that you're working in, let's say, SaaStock. Okay. But I didn't know who we are. So I would ask, and maybe you were the finance guy, maybe you were even the PR person. But I didn't want to pitch you with Mediatoolkit if I didn't know who if you would be potential for it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not pitching to anybody until I know who you are. Yeah. And if you are my ideal customer profile, then I'm pitching you. I will never pitch a CEO or, let's say, somebody working in finance for Mediatoolkit, because they will not use the tool, right? So a no is only from ideal customer profile. Yeah. If a marketer or public relations person says, we're not interested, that's okay. That's a no. That's maybe objection, maybe an excuse, but it's at least from the right person, right? If I want to sell to the marketing department of a big hotel, I don't take no for granted from somebody who works at reception, right? It's not, and I'm not pitching to that person. So the first stage is first call. We are speaking to the right person. Okay, we are pitching the Mediatoolkit meeting or testing. They can test the tool without any obligations. Then during the testing phase, we have a second meeting, which we call the demo call, where we go deeper into the environment of that potential customer, dig deeper into their problems, and we are showing the tool and how the tool can solve this problem. That's the second yes. And now we're coming to the third yes stage, where we are basically doing, see if they have any objections, do they have any concerns. We are handling those objections, and then we are going into the closing stage. And that was my process. And then we basically scale that. The first step, everybody on the team knows who the persona is, what's a first call, what's a demo call, what's a sales qualification, and who do we sell the offers to. We don't sell offers before the demo call. After the testing stage is over, then we send the offer. And basically each stage, then you can measure each stage. And then we start to scale. So when you have a team of 3 to 4 person, then you can see, okay, this colleague has a problem with the first yes. We should work on his pitch. The second colleague has great first pitch, but maybe has some issues on let's say presentation demo call stage. And then you can work with that, and you can see the metrics. And that's how we started to build a team. And then we built a big document called Sales Playbook, where we basically put all the best practices over the years of all the sales persons that worked in Mediatoolkit, about our customers, about our CRM, about what kind of data do we need to track, what works, what kind of call works, what kind of email works. And when you have knowledge that it's structured and written, then it's repeatable. Then I learned something for the first 2 years, but a new salesperson will learn this within the first month. All of the experience for me, from myself, and from other colleagues as well. And that's how we scale.
Interesting when you mentioned the emails and the copy that converted the best. Do you think that the approach via email has changed since you started the sales career? And by changed, I mean the subject lines and the text, because I noticed that it depends on who are you targeting. And all these tricks with subject lines don't work anymore. So back in the days we put your name in the subject line so you open, but now I know this is a trick. So I think it's not that easy anymore with emails or outreach on LinkedIn. How do you change the checklist with this with copies and stuff like that?
Okay, we measure various campaigns, and so we always analyze open rate, response rate, and download rate. So if they download, let's say PDF, we attract interest. But it's all usually a combination. Email itself won't work, as you said today, but it will work with, let's say, social selling, with LinkedIn approach, and maybe calls in between. So there is no blueprint, one size fits all customers and all companies. Personalization is very important. So let me just give you an example. A big oil company, corporate communications department, I've exchanged 9 emails with that person, but each email was very personalized and different. And it was basically talking to myself. Right, 9 mails without any response, but it was deep. It was really concerned on the customer, giving them pictures of data within our tool, asking them provocative, challenging questions. Do they think they can get something more? Is there any information missing? And I was talking okay, I'm a crazy person. I'm talking to myself. This is my last email anyway. I won't send it again. I didn't write a breakup email, if that's what you're thinking. Emails. And then they replied that there was no rule, but it was a big company. It was worth the effort. I think that personalization goes, a good research goes, and you have to be very direct and open about it. People are in B2B context. My opinion is people are not stupid. If you're a seller, then if you're a sales guy, you're a sales guy. Don't pretend that you're not a sales guy. It's legitimate business. You have a product, they have a need, tell them that. Tell them that you recognize something, but it has to be authentic and personal, and it's direct. So if you're, let's say, head of corporate communications, you will get 500 sales emails a day, but nobody's saying, if you're honest and you have done your research, they will open that email.
Yeah.
And they're a busy person. They will maybe not reply within the first, but give them another email like that, and they will notice what is a cadence that was sent 2,000 mails, or what's a high personalized approach. Sometimes
I even reply to this 7th or 9th email or LinkedIn message, because if they're authentic, if they at least point to the direction where my problem is, if they're selling something that I don't need, I don't bother with replying. But sometimes I reply, it's not the right time. Great message, by the way. I like the sequences that you have, because I learned a lot from the smart email campaigns. But I have to admit, it rarely happens that you get the sales email that attracts you, even that you don't like it. But and the other thing is, even if they don't need your service now, they will remember you. So that's why it's really important to have a healthy approach, and don't bullshitting them. So be honest, and you know, it will stick in their mind, maybe later. So I got this email from the guy selling X, Y, and Z, and the email was really honest. So let's go back and check. So sometimes I put a label on the emails, the sales emails.
It's value.
So,
Sorry to interrupt. Just to tell you one thing, it's value. If you provide real value, not value for yourself. Okay, I land a new client. It's obvious what my value here is, right? If they respond to me, but if you give them value, if you give them something personalized, that something to think about, they will respond. But just don't be dishonest about it. Like those two parties are in the business context, and they know that. They know that they have their KPIs. You have your KPIs. Don't rule that out, right? But if you give like honest approach, it will turn back on you.
And sometimes the emails that are sweet and short, as you mentioned at the beginning, work best. I sent the email 6 years ago. It was a short email. It's like something I would like to work with you guys on podcast. And I got a reply in 5 minutes back. It was like, when I was starting my career, this was huge success, let's call it, because I didn't even think that he would reply. But it was not a long email. It was a really short email, explaining what the benefits are on their side, what we want, and best regards. I sent the email, and 5 minutes later, I got the connection. So I think it's worth doing the research. Speaking about the research, it's hard if you do a research and selling a product for $50 per account, let's say, because you have to do a lot of research, and if the company is like have 50 or 100 employees, then you have to have 10,000 accounts. But you switched the markets, I think. So you went to maybe mid-market. So your pricing is 500 per month, something like that, starting pricing. So can you lead us through the market size and the companies that you are now?
Sure, no problem. So just give you a little bit more context. So we started first in Croatia and in, let's say, ex-Yugoslavia, the outbound approach. And then we started to sell to, let's say, European countries also using outbound. And this was the first challenge that we had. So big challenge. It was in 2016. We were Croatia native speakers speaking English, selling to, let's say, Polish, German, Belgian speaking people who English is also second language. So you can imagine it's hard for both parties. Both parties speak English, but miscommunication can happen a lot more than two native speakers. And of course, you are selling it from Croatia. Maybe they have their local solution. So the outbound didn't quite work there when we started abroad, because we targeted, let's say, small and medium business companies, but much more small. And big companies, well, basically had some, let's say, local solution or some international solution. So we didn't have success. So then we set up a channel inbound. So we invested a lot of inbound marketing, and we basically started to sell it to various types of companies that were in, let's say, much more advanced in customer journey. They're warmer leads.
By inbound, what do you mean by inbound? What exactly were you doing?
Google Ads, content marketing, and basically we attract traffic. Marketing department attracts traffic on our websites, and then we did like sales development representatives. In that time, first we called them market response team. They basically called them within 5 minutes after their registration, and then we asked them. Well, first we wanted to see if they're persona or not. If they're not persona, we would answer any of their questions, hear their feedback, and pinpoint them in the right direction. But if they're persona, then we would go in more conversation with them and try to set up a demo call. And then we basically had various types of customers, from the big government organizations from Asia, South America, European companies, African NGOs, various types of companies, various types of PR people and marketing people. And then we noticed that some of them are buying, let's say, 100 euros per month. Some of them are buying over 1,000 euros per month. And then we noticed, okay, we have some new features. We could sell that. We could add more analytical part to more expert and so on. And then we basically look at our competitors. So we saw that the market was very much saturated on the lower end, like for micro influencers, bloggers, marketing freelancers. Then there was this big enterprise competitors. And then we noticed, okay, mid-market is something that we have good features. We're very fast. We cover a lot of data as the big enterprise competitors, and then we can be somewhere on, let's say, mid-market. And then we basically, one rule when you have a bigger sales team, which plan is most popular, the one that is the cheapest. So to raise more revenue, well, basically you raise the price on the cheapest plans, and the average deal will grow.
Do you think that there is enough market on the in the startup market space or bloggers market space? Is it that it's not big enough to make money? Because I'm guessing if you're a small blogger, you don't have a lot of brand mentions, or do you? Or do you need a monitoring tool for monitoring others? It was this also the product decision to go, okay, there is Coca-Cola and Red Bull and all these guys, they really need brand monitoring on a daily basis, maybe on an hourly basis, because they're mentioned everywhere. And if you think about a blogger or vlogger, maybe a small startup with 5 people on board, they get mentioned maybe 2 or 3 times per year. So maybe it was also the decision to go up market because of the need of the customers.
The strategy changes, right? So if we want to attract the bloggers, the freelancers, the small companies, the startups that are being mentioned five times a month, but it's kind of nice to know that they're mentioned. There's a lot of them, but you could not have a sales force selling to those types of customers, because then you would probably go into the startup graveyard. So you have high cost of sales and marketing, but average deal is too small, right? So you don't want to have, our sales and customer success approach is lots of human contact, lots of touch points with the customer, lots of value that our people are providing to them, and you need to have that into account. And you don't do that. If you want to sell to the bloggers, freelancers, you have to have an automated sales process without any touch. So think of this as a Netflix, like B2B, okay? So you have to have a good website, great usability, enter my credit card. Nobody's right for Netflix, right? If I'm canceling my subscriptions, calling me.
And stay there for 10 years. That it's a good lifetime value for Netflix.
Yeah. And so you got to understand that was the necessity to go up market. But I think even if you're selling at, let's say, 500 euros per month, 400 euros, or even 1,000 euros per month, you are still in transactional B2B sales. You are not doing enterprise or upper mid-market. You can still close this fast as an average deal of 100 euros. There is sometimes that a sales rep within our company has 2 calls with the customer and sales plan for a yearly contract of, let's say, 600 euros per year with 2 calls without any meeting. Mm-hmm. So it's possible to be fast transactional with this. So I don't think we have went too much up market. It's a good start, and we have scaled to 100 companies using this inbound approach, and it was various types of price data. And as we have always experimented, can we raise it a little bit? Yes, the sales volume is Yes, the number of clients is the same. Okay. Then do it again in, let's say, a couple of quarters. And yeah.
At what stage did you say, okay, now I need a sales team? So you were building, the whole sales funnel in the process on your own. How many customers, or what was the MRR at that moment that you were, as a company, you decided, okay, we need 3 or 5 more people? And how many people did you put on the test? Because usually they put, in sales, you have different stages. You need maybe 2 or 3 SDRs. Maybe you need 3 people to close the deals or to make the lead gen. So you need maybe 10 or 9 people to start the sales. So what was the starting point for you that you said, okay, now we need more people? And how many people did you employ for the first test? And how did it work?
So within the first stage, this was not something that I decided, because in the first 2 to 3 years, I was mainly working as, let's say, mostly as a sales rep, let's say, as a sales specialist. So when we basically covered the first expenses, or let's say costs, operating costs, basically they employed right away one person that was for a customer success team, somebody which handled the accounts after I did the sales, and then the company basically employed first 2 sales reps, and then it was, as we basically started, some of them were successful, some of them were not, then we built first initial process together. So you don't have to employ 10 person right away. You first have to find something repeatable. So if the 2 persons can sell something using the same process to the same customers, you could probably scale something around that. But so to be quite honest, I don't know when was the second person, how much of MRR we had, but it was not too much, basically, when growth was going very well. But then when the second person came, it didn't automatically translate it double the events. It doesn't go like that. There are always some obstacles on the way. But I can speak something from that first stage. We experimented a lot. First, we started, every salesperson is doing everything: prospecting, qualification, selling, negotiations, and account management. Then we separated customer success from the sales reps. Then we tried SDRs, account executives. That didn't work. We went into that too early. So we then switched again to the entire funnel. And then when we started inbound, we also did a couple of salespersons were doing the entire process. And later now we have a lot of inbound leads, and now we can then specialize. Openers and closers, right? SDRs and account executives. And now, so to give you to give you some ideas how you can invest in more salespeople depends on what's the growth rate. Is it by accident you had a couple of good months, or is it by something repeatable, right? So if you get funding, if you can bootstrap, whatever, if you know that it's not risky, but start not building everything about the first top performing rep. You got to look at the average and then scale on the average, not on top performing, because you cannot scale 10 top performer reps. You can scale on average, right? So if the average is good, then the process is good.
What do you think is the advantages and disadvantages being in the Balkan and selling to the Germany or France? So obviously our native language is not English or German. And what are the advantages and disadvantages for building a sales team? Because obviously, do you have a sales team in any other country, or it's only here?
No, we have some resellers, but they're not part of the company as employees, but we are cooperating with them on various markets, not just in Europe, but in Africa and Southeast Asia, and in Latam also. So what are the advantages? Well, first, so we're now in the European Union, so that's we're all neighbors, right? Advantages, now thanks to football and thanks to they know that they have some positive thoughts about Croatia. Some of them well, in marketing, Croatia is quite popular within the marketing scene in Europe for vacation purposes. And also football helped a lot, especially in, let's say, international sales outside
I would
Europe.
say sport in general. I mean, not only football. You have a great handball team. You have water sports, skiing. So it's not only football.
Yeah, so it's kind of like you're now associated. Okay, this is a really interesting country. From some of them have nice memories, so that's an advantage. Disadvantage is probably, okay, you're from the West, from Balkans, so are we a reliable company or not? Okay, maybe European Union membership kind of downgraded this, but they have somebody who they trust on their market. Maybe they are not sure how the tool will work on their market, how the automated sentiment will work on German language, or let's say, or some other language. So that's the disadvantage. But if you gain their trust, and usually the tool solves this. So we open the tool, and if we can persuade them, just see the tool. If it's good, see the tool and test it on your examples, and then you can make your opinion without any obligations. So disadvantage is language barrier, not just our English but their English as well, and the lack of fun. Well, we are not a big brand, so that also affects our hiring process, right? Who we're going to hire? Yeah.
Cool. What would you suggest to a startup with, let's say, a CEO being also a salesperson, and or somebody else doing the sales, but they are on the edge of being, let's say, profitable in sales, so they can afford somebody else. So when is the right moment to start hiring salespeople, additional salespeople, in general in SaaS B2B?
Okay, so first, of course, they will have to look their own finance and see how things are performing. They have to be aware of the following: they're a CEO, so it's much easier for them to open the doors than to an average sales rep, right? So everybody wants to meet the CEO of any company. So they have probably, if they're starting their company, they have probably some career before that, so they have a lot of connections, and it's different for them. So first, they have to be aware that their process will not be the same as the first rep's process, and they have to be aware that all the things they know about their product and the enthusiasm will not be probably in that first salesperson. Or they can try to find it. I had that enthusiasm. I'm still in love with the product, and I was okay, it could be better. I was like the apostle I was preaching about the product. So the first rep has to be somebody who believes in the product very much, and who is not afraid of the big nose. So don't look in the big names. Look somebody who sells something for some company that nobody heard about. That's the first thing. Build the process a lot around the first and second person. And if they have something that works, some averages are being set up, and some metrics, what to expect. It doesn't have to be great conversion. It has to be stable from month to month. Even it doesn't have to be profitable. Just tweak one thing, and then try to, when they are paying their costs, when the sales reps are paying their costs, then acquire, then start scaling, and also start in the beginning.
Any books or resources for SaaS B2B sales teams? What would you recommend beside the obvious? I think it was Neil Reckman, Spin Selling.
Yeah, so spin selling is great for learning consultative selling, which is good in operational sense, how to sell, how to speak to the customer. The second book, what learned me the outbound, the old way, is Predictable Revenue by Aaron Ross. Gives you more insights about volume, about email marketing, what's cold calling, how to approach people at scale. The third book, and also much influential on my personal growth is a sales acceleration formula from HubSpot. Mark Roberge was the author, I think. So these are my 3 sacred books on sales. So I think that everybody who's interested in sales and SaaS should read those 3 books for different purposes. So for outbound predictable revenue, for inbound sales acceleration formula, and spin selling for sales working with the customers. The other good book maybe on management, what we Mediatoolkit internally, it's not just sales correlated, it's general about the processes and management in general, is High Output Management by Andrew Grove, I think. So this is also a great book about business in general. So 4 books, I think that's a good read for anybody.
And predictable revenue was great. I think you should reread it even if you're not in sales. Sales accelerator formula is really a blueprint for sales. And then did you read Chris Voss? Never Split the Difference. I think it was like popular a year ago. How to negotiate and how to listen. As a good salesperson, you have to listen. And I think his background as a ex-FBI negotiator, it's really great to hear the stories. As the whole book, I think it's long, but you can get some gold nuggets out of this book. How to repeat some sentences, how to negotiate for the salary and stuff like that.
To be honest, I didn't read it. I got it from a couple of persons. So a couple of persons recommended to me, and I value their opinion a lot. So I probably think it's a good book, but I haven't personally read it. But usually everything helps. We in Mediatoolkit, in my team also, we stress that you need to learn all the time and read everything about your customers, about your competitors, about your product, about the sales in general. There's always something something new to learn, especially now when we are basically at around $2 million in ARR, or 1.5 million in euros in ARR, and we are scaling companies. So there's a lot of things to be learned every day. And I think in every industry, not just in sales, you have to learn a lot because the times are changing. And you see the last year, what happened? Nobody could prepare you for that, and you have to learn. And I think that if you're in SaaS, be prepared that you will have to learn each day.
I mean, especially the last years when we have been attacked with all the informations, like small informations, and I think we forgot to read books, old books. It's really crucial to read and learn up to a moment when you realize that you don't know nothing. Then you can stop for a week, maybe, or 2, because then you know that you don't know nothing, and then you need to force yourself to read because you know that you have to read, because the universe or whatever, the world is so big that you can learn either from your mistakes or from mistakes of the others. And it's really easy and cheap to buy a book for $10, even if you drop a book after reading, 50 pages, because it's not interesting, or maybe you just get one idea out of it. It's golden because you pay $20 for a book and you get one idea that can change your life. So I'm really advocating for reading more books and less quotes and Instagram posts.
And I totally agree. And let me just give you something from, well, basically I've worked in Mediatoolkit for over several years now, changed a couple of positions, and I learned a lot in this company. And I can tell you, when I started as a sales rep and when I started as a manager, there was always a new obstacle, new problem, new challenge to solve. And when you think that probably thousands of people, even millions, have the same problem, such as yourself, within some part of your career. And let's say if there are millions of people with the same problem, well, probably thousands of them wrote about this problem and how to solve it. And when we're speaking about SaaS, if you want to scale from 0 to, let's say, 100 million, there is a roadmap, right? There is companies on each levels, and you can learn. You don't have to just read. You can connect via LinkedIn with somebody. Like I connected to, let's say, a person who manages 10 million euros ARR startup. That person works as a chief revenue officer. And I just works in the UK. I wrote a short, sweet email. Hey, hi, I need help. I'm a young head of sales, and I have some questions for you. Would like to pick your brain about some topics. 2 days later, we are on a call, and I'm having like a mentor outside of the company, giving insights into the road that they already went through, and giving me some good and valuable advices for the future. So
they can save you 5 years.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I was also grateful for people that were helping me, and this was usually, it's nice to say, but usually people that were not from Slovenia. So, when I was living abroad, I was astonished how mentors can help you and how they are willing to help you, even if you're not even close to their level of knowledge or power or whatever. So having this in mind, being humble and learning from others, even from books or jumping on a call, I think it's really gold to get you, to push you, and maybe not only to get the knowledge, to push you to see that other people are also struggling with problems, and then they are in the same industry. The only problem that I see, the problem is in the SaaS as a young industry. Things in all aspects, in pricing and sales, are changing, and products are changing. So there are not a lot of content to read. So basically you have Aaron Ross and Jacob van der Kooi and Steliafti talking about the sales. They don't have 200 authors writing about SaaS B2B.
Mm-hmm. Well, it depends, or maybe they can write something. If you cannot find them, there are probably some let's say neighboring industry that are not maybe correlated with software sales of software. But let me just explain what I think here. Mediatoolkit is an abstract product. You're measuring the reputation of a particular organization or a company, right? It's not quite easy to show value, right? Because you get value when person is using Mediatoolkit when they discover some insights from the charts, from news that they're receiving. So it's consultative selling. So okay, I need to read something that's relatable to that. I'm not selling, let's say, CRM where benefit is quite direct.
Obvious.
Yeah, and obvious. So you have to find an industry that's similar to that and learn from that industry. So generally, I think that's COVID. I'm totally agreeing with what Lemkin said on his blog, that COVID is a big push for in the long run for SaaS industry, because we are now my grandma is digitalized, right?
Yeah.
Digitalized, Zoom calls, everything, and of course, people are now even B2C. Everybody's using their credit cards for various types of subscriptions. So you notice that. So if you have a B2B, somebody who is at home, subscribed to Netflix, to some other, let's say, consumer SaaS, it's very easy for them to switch to on business also using SaaS models. I think it's a big push for us. When we are speaking, Slovenia and Croatia probably the same on this matter. Unfortunately, there are some not so many SaaS companies on our markets. There are some very good. Some, Infobips has scaled a lot, right? It's a big, huge company right now. There are some other SaaS that are also in our space or a little bit higher. But I think I'm hoping that with the success of Mediatoolkit and other SaaS companies here in the region, we will have more entrepreneurs starting with this model, and this will be, then we would have people, much more meetups and much more events like your event, where people will exchange idea, and I'm looking forward to this, being part of it.
Couldn't agree more. That's why we are hosting local events, SaaStock events in the region. As I mentioned before, we started in doing events only for Ljubljana, but I found out that there are a lot of great companies doing a nice MRR or RRR for that matter to be discovered in the region. So anywhere in the Balkan, from Macedonia to Croatia, and I'm really looking forward to discover this market more. And I think it's good to bring stories out and great speakers, and maybe also to involve the VC along the way. So I'm really happy to host this event. Speaking of that, I think we were just about an hour into our session. I would like to thank you again to take the time and share your knowledge and the stuff that you're doing at Mediatoolkit. And I hope to meet you in person soon.
Likewise, and thank you very much for inviting me for this event. Of course, 1 hour is let's say a short session. When we're speaking about SaaS and sales, there are lots of topics that we could have covered, but I hope that I managed to give you insights into our company and into our sales process. Thanks again, and good luck with your event, and good luck to SaaS industry in Slovenia in general, and looking forward to following your new events as they come.
Thanks.